Welcome everyone to the T.A.C.K.L.E Mental Health Podcast. Today we are talking about mental wellness with clinical supervisor Kendall and case manager Jessica. If you like what you hear on this podcast, be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook by searching RFS T.A.C.K.L E. And if you want to learn more about our services and what we do for the community, visit rfstackle.com. Let's get into it.
I'm Kendall Weber. I am a clinical supervisor, and I supervise Fulton County and Sylvania.
And I am Jessica Amos. I am a case manager. Been here for 5 years and at the same school at East Broadway Elementary School.
Okay, so I know I was like, okay. I would say mental health and mental wellness is really our well being, cognitively, emotionally, behaviorally, and how we interact. Um, Mental health being how we function as people in our society, and then the well-being aspect of it I would say is more of really like how we are able to make sure we're functioning at a high level.
I mean, what she said.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really good answer.
Thank you.
Our society is very much go, go, go. And if you take time for yourself, for your mental health, and you're selfish, especially as a mom, I struggle with that a lot, being, feeling guilty when I take time for myself. So I feel like it's constantly reminding yourself and pushing those negative thoughts out of your head, and saying, I know I say to myself all the time, like, I cannot be an effective employee, mother, wife if I do not take care of myself. So.
Definitely. And going off of that, I would definitely say, accepting that it's okay to take time for yourself and accepting that you don't have to have a busy schedule. I think our society says busy is the new cool. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that's very cool. And sometimes when we don't slow down for ourselves, um, exactly what you had said was we aren't going to be effective. And so finding time and maintaining that, even if it is a couple minutes in the car before you head into the school or into work, I think it's important to find a little bit of time to slow down.
Mhm, mhm. And also, it doesn't have to take like a lot of money.
Yes.
Like massages would be great.
Right.
And like mani pedis every week would be great, or every twice a month or something like that. It's really just like the little things, like you said, like I like to pray before I get out of my car, or listening to music, or meditating, just little things.
Definitely being intentional about it too. If you are listening to music, being intentional in the type of music you're listening to. Is it building you up, or is it going to bring you down? I think being aware of what we're putting into our bodies and our brains is something that, even though it's hectic, it's something that we do every day. And so really just being more insightful to and being intentional and making sure that it's uplifting and positive.
100%.
I definitely think that's like the most important thing that you can do. Being diagnosed with a mental illness makes it that much harder. And so I think really educating yourself on your symptoms and your triggers and what is kind of causing some of those symptoms. Sometimes we don't get all the answers, but the better that we understand our mental diagnosis, the better we can kind of combat that. And so the more that you know, the better you can be, going back to that intentionality.
Also, being willing to change.
Yes.
Those everyday like thoughts, and I don't know, I just feel like change is very hard. I mean, I hate change. And changing your everyday behaviors that you're so used to. The kids that we work with, they're used to seeing anger as a reaction. So teaching them to stop, think, and maybe have a different reaction, or changing your reaction is very, very difficult if that's something that you grew up in. So you have to be willing to change your behaviors.
Definitely.
It's really hard.
It's kind of like, it's like you have to do the things that you don't necessarily want to do to make sure that you're going to be okay. I like to compare it to, like, if somebody is diagnosed with a physical illness, right? Like diabetes. People don't want to have to take insulin every day, but they have to. And so being intentional and being able to say, you know what, like I have to do these things because I know that I have other things going on is important to recognize so that you can kind of, like I said, combat those symptoms. Just in general, I think being in this field, it is something that's discussed, and so it's nice to have some support and leadership. And my boss, and hopefully I can do that for like my clinicians as well. But also, just like I think social media is a huge thing, and finding people on social media, like they're like doing all these, yeah, they're doing all these things, they're supportive, and like that's one thing that I think we can use social media for to our advantage is like, hey, this girl's got it going on and look what she's doing, and maybe I should try that, or something of that aspect. I think too, I had a mentor who, as I was, getting my additional licenses, I thought he had it all together and everything, and I got in his car and he's listening to a mindfulness like audio thing, and I'm like, yo, I didn't know like you did those things. And I thought that was inspiring to me because like on the outside he had it all together, but he was taking that time to do those things for him.
I feel like for me, it's been a struggle, and like being in this field, it's been like the first time I've had like that mental health support. So it's so nice to be like want to go to work every day because you have a supportive coworker who's like, you're off, you need to go take a breather, like take 10 minutes and then come back and reset. So it's so nice to have that support, especially with what we do, because it's mentally draining every day. Every day. So it's so nice, I feel like, to have that support here with what we do.
For sure. Yeah. You don't get that everywhere. You really don't, especially if you've been in multiple agencies and things. Yeah. I do think that's one thing that we do a good job at, and maybe I'm just being biased. But it is nice to have that coworker that supports you. They know what you're going through. Whether it's professionally or personally, our professional lives are draining, and then we have to go home and deal with our personal lives. And so to have that coworker to say, you know what, I see that you're off. Like, I see you, and it's okay. Again, like that acceptance piece of like, you're right, like this job is hard, and let's take a minute before we attack the next problem that we have.
Even our supervisors, I can text my supervisor and be like, today is not the day, and I just need a little bit, and they're like, okay, just get back to what you're doing when you're ready. So it's really, really nice to have that support too from the uppers.
That's good to hear. I wish I would have known more. Just going through some of the things like that, everybody, we all have our personal battles, and that, yeah, it definitely was not something talked about. We didn't learn skills to cope with the stressors in life and the things that are thrown at us that we don't ask for. It wasn't talked about in school. It wasn't talked about in church. And I don't know that it was necessarily something that was not to be talked about. I just think there wasn't that much emphasis on it, at least for me when I was growing.
I didn't even know we had a school counselor.
Yeah, or that's what they did. Like,
right.
yeah,
right, exactly. I can remember I was in my late 20s, and I told my dad, who is African American, that I was on antidepressants, and I've had 2 kids, and I was just like, my marriage was suffering and I needed to change something. And he was like, no, what? Why? Like, Jesus loves you and Jesus will heal you. I'm like, no, that's not how this works. And I basically like approached it like, if I had cancer, wouldn't you want me to get the treatment for it? And he's like, that's different. You can see that in a scan. I'm like, you can see depression in a scan. And kind of just changing the way that generation thinks, and putting mental health as a important, it needs to be discussed.
Definitely.
It needs to be discussed. I have a grandmother who is now starting therapy, and she's basically
That's awesome.
been in hell and back. Like, she should have had therapy way before. But it's so disheartening that it just,
The awareness that, or the negative outlook on mental health, and it's not to say there's something wrong with you. When you have mental health, it is something that we deal with, just like we had talked about before, physical health. And you can see the changes in the brain when you have mental health disorders. And really, like, there are going to be those people that aren't going to change their view. But I think that that's a huge initiative that really a lot of agencies are taking, is just to bring awareness, um, and really normalizing mental health.
yes. And I think being in those schools, I wish we had a tackle when I was in elementary school and high
Right.
school, when we didn't. A lot of kids that I talk to now, because they're like, what is tackle about? And I'll explain it to them. They're like, oh, yeah, depression. Like, they know the diagnosis, which is really, really cool.
That is cool.
We're kind of slowly changing the way people
Yes.
think of mental health.
Yeah, I definitely think that space is a barrier, especially when we don't have our own space, right? Because that's, we're supposed to be focusing on us. And I'm going to kind of go back to like what I had talked about previously with, in your car, walking to school, walking to work, even if you can find 5 minutes to literally put oxygen back in your brain, and even just taking that deep breath. I think I'll do that with a lot of my kids. Like, hold on, like, let's just, like, I'll do it with my staff. Like, let's take a deep breath. And it's like, wow, like, that felt so good to really just, like, put oxygen back in our brain, to let our brains know, like, it is okay. I am calm, I am cool, I'm collected, and then moving on. So it can be little things like that. I don't have a magic wand. I can't change your environment, right? And so finding those little spaces, I know for me, and I think you as well, like in your car, for us as adults, is a huge place, because it's like I can be alone and literally like think, say, scream, whatever I need to do. Walking into work, I can do my deep breathing. It takes me 2 minutes to walk from my car to the front door, or whatever it might be. Like, even if you're practicing that little amount of time, it's going to reinforce that. And then hopefully, when your brain or your body starts feeling stressed in the moment, or in your stressful environment, your brain can remember, hey, I can take a deep breath, I can get space. I don't necessarily have to get physical space, because we know that that's not always doable as well, but we can get that mental and emotional space, visualizations, um, meditations, all those types of things can still take your brain. It literally has the same effect on your brain to get visual space as it does physical space. But again, it has to be intentional. You have to want to be able to do it. You have to want it to work for it to work. And I think sometimes that's frustrating for our kiddos, is the willingness. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. And it's like, the more that you try, it's kind of like when you first started to learn how to ride a bike. You didn't get on and ride the bike and it was like perfect. I mean, there might be some people that have. I was not one of them. And you have to keep trying until you just get on and you don't think about it. And that's how our brain works with mental health as well, is if we continue to practice these things, even when we're not stressed, when our brain does get stressed, our bodies do get stressed, it will remember, hey, this is how I calm down. And it's almost like automatic. It'll just come.
Yeah. And I think even practicing in those little moments, not like necessarily the big moments, because the big moments are going to take some time to get there. So what I tell my clients is, like, instead of talking back to the teacher, I turned around and said something under my breath. Huge. Okay. Baby steps are steps, is what I tell everyone. And it's really hard, especially I think for our clients, because a lot of them, the majority of them, have those toxic environments. where our job is like so hard because we teach them all these amazing things, these coping skills, and then they go right back to that toxic environment. And the fact that they have that little seed of hope, like this can be better. And we just want to keep nourishing that and helping that grow. So finding those safe places, I think too, because not everybody can drive. So like I tell a lot of my kids, okay, bathroom, closet, a place where it's quiet and you're not by yourself. If you have using your words. So if you have a parent that listens to you, saying, okay, I just need to walk away. And a lot of times for my kiddos, I'll say, if you want to have that talk with your parent, I can be there. I can be the bad guy. That's fine. I can get yelled at. It's okay. And letting them know your child, when they get angry, they need to go. Yelling at each other is not going to solve. So teamwork, definitely.
I think I want to go off of that, like when you said, having that conversation with the parents and with ourselves. I think it's important, one, as kids as well as adults, to remember like emotions are emotions, and we as adults get angry and frustrated and hurt and disappointed and all these emotions, and we don't always handle them super well. So imagine being in a tiny body having that same amount of emotion, and not having the self-regulation and coping skills that we have. And again, not one of us is perfect, and we screw up and respond and react to undesirable situations. So one, remembering for our clients, remembering like it's okay to have these emotions. It's but what we do with them, but then also as adults of like, yeah, when I'm angry, I like to flip a lid too. And remembering like it's okay for them to go get space or do something that's going to help them calm down before they readdress the situation.
A lot of things that, like an activity that we do is words of encouragement. I love words of encouragement. My house is full of words of encouragement. My girls know. And so like an activity that we like to do is Post-it notes, and then we write like, you're doing great, keep it up. And then we have them stick up around their house. So when they're in a moment, they can see that Post-it note and be like, oh, okay, I got this.
That's super cool. I love that. I would say, I don't necessarily know that there's something specific that I go to. I think that it's easy in our society to, we feel a certain way, and so we jump on social media. But taking that step back and like really reevaluating like what we're actually feeling. I do know like there is this book that's called 4 Ways to Click. It's kind of a heavy read. But again, going back to like that knowledge aspect, it really educates somebody on how our brains respond to stress and pain and all of these different things. I believe it's by Dr. Banks, Amy Banks. And so going back to like educating, like, okay, like this is why I'm feeling this way. This is what had happened. And even as an adult, as a licensed professional, I still sometimes have a difficult time saying like, okay, like I'm really like upset right now and I'm not even sure why. Like I know like kind of ish why, but I don't actually like know why. And so like reminding myself to like ask myself why like 5 times before like I respond. And definitely like gratitude journals I think are huge. I know some of my clients, they like to read the Bible. There are like very like encouraging verses in the Bible that they kind of, remind themselves to be still, and know that they don't have to be in control of every situation. Has been helpful to some of them as well. I think that's super awesome that we do have agencies and leaders, CEOs who are engaging in that and not staying closed minded. I don't know. I couldn't tell you what the future looks like, but I definitely think that the more knowledge that and awareness that is brought to, I think that we could do something with it for sure.
And that stigma.
Yeah.
There was recently a dancer who committed suicide, and my husband's like, I don't understand. He had money, he had a beautiful family, he was famous. Like, I just don't understand why he killed himself. And it's like, you don't know what someone is going through. And just having those opportunities to talk about it, you know, and checking in on not just those people that are happy, but those that are sad, and that everyone's struggling, you know, especially nowadays, everyone is struggling, and we need to really support one another. And so I hope that it's a positive mental health, and we're going to constantly struggle with different things that happen in our society, but talking about it, I think, is amazing.
We did this.
Right.
I thought that was really cool. You know,
Yes.
that's a step in the right direction. And we're just, you know, in the grand scheme of things, one small agency and one small podcast, you know, that we're doing. It's like, no, like we can do these things and touch people's lives, and hopefully open the minds of other people. The more people that we get to talk to, I think we have amazing clinicians, and the people that they come in contact with every day, they have that opportunity every single day, you know, to educate and help and just be the voice of reason and open-mindedness.
Yeah. And constantly working on it. There's like some clients I've worked with for almost 6 years, and they're doing phenomenal. And the teachers always like, you look at what you did. And it's like, oh, no. It took a team. They did that. They recognize, you know, someone took the time to understand them and what they're going through. Baby steps are steps. That's what I keep saying.